Hello everybody, Justin from Playing Board Games here, and today I'm going to share with you my first attempt at a Parallel Lola Hayes deck with the gameplay coming to you later this week. If you don't know, I have a tradition where each time there's a new Parallel Investigator, I do the announcement video, I do my first 29 XP deck, and then I do the gameplay of it. So we are here in the middle step of that three-step process of the new Parallel Investigator. It's been a while since we received our last Parallel Investigator, Parallel Father Mateo. You can find a link to his video in the video description, so you can go check that out if you, to this video, to the Parallel Lola Hayes video in the video description if you want to see that. And you know what, maybe just for fun I'll include the link to the Parallel Father Mateo one as well. Before we get into this, let's talk about Parallel Lola Hayes. She has a lot of signatures, so just bear with me on this, but let's look at her player card first because that's the important thing. 3-3-3-3. You begin the game in the neutral role. You can only play or commit neutral cards or cards from your current role. And forced, when your turn begins, switch your role to one of the classes or neutral. Elder Sign effect +2, you may switch roles. The big difference here for Parallel Lola from regular Lola is the fact that, one, you can now trigger lightning bolt abilities, reactions, and use actions on cards not within your role. With this one, you can only play or commit, but all of the other things are totally on the table. This is a huge change for Parallel Lola that I think is going to actually be the biggest thing in her new kit. Her forced effect is also what's different, where before is a lightning bolt you can change roles, but with this one you now need to change roles every turn, which means that you cannot stay as a guardian if you already were a guardian when you started your turn with that. That is very important to know, so keep that in mind. This means that you're going to kind of be bouncing between your roles more, but because you're less restricted in what you can use reactions and actions and lightning bolts for, you're actually going to have kind of a more free-flowing reactive Lola, which I think is going to be a really cool experience. Her deck size is 40, so we're going to have 2 slides for the deck. Get ready for that. Class choices. At deck creation, you're going to choose 2 classes. Her deck building options are neutral cards level 0 to 5, cards from your chosen class level 0 to 4, and cards from other classes levels 0 to 1. This is very different than the old Lola, who had level 3, 0 to 3 for all of the classes. This means that while you may not be as generically open to all of the classes as you're building Lola Hayes, what it does mean is that you can now kind of build focusing on 2 classes but still feel the other pieces from the other classes in your deck. I think this is really cool, and it's more akin to Charlie Kane, and what I think this is actually going to do is this is going to make Parallel Lola feel, I think, even more like a neutral investigator, which sounds a little bit strange, but I think this is actually a very successful design, and I think that this is a really cool sort of accomplishment here. Her deck building requirements, we're going to kind of ignore those because these are replacement cards. The Heroine, Mentor, Femme Fatale, Enchantress, and Final Girl, these are all replacements. Same with Samuel Blake, the Weakness. These are important because you can play them in addition to the improvisations and Crisis of Identity, or instead of. All the leading ladies, they're a 1-cost fast event that allow you to play a card from your hand regardless of your current role paying its cost. Then they get a bonus if they match the type of card. So like Heroine, if you play a Guardian, you can either draw a card or take a fight action. For Mentor, if it's a Seeker, draw a card, take an Investigate. Femme Fatale for Rogue, draw a card or immediately evade. Enchantress, if it's a Mystic, draw a card, remove a Doom from a player card. Or Final Girl, if it was Survivor, either draw a card or heal 1 damage and or Horror. Her replacement weakness is Samuel Blake, and this guy's a little bit tricky. He's a 3-cost asset that takes up the ally slot. He is hidden as well, so he's going to stay into your hand. And while Samuel Blake is in your hand, you cannot switch roles or play cards belonging to another role. This sounds very restrictive, and it is very restrictive, but I think with proper deck building, you can actually do the Samuel Blake dance very, very well. And additionally, while he is in play, if you do play him, as additional cost for you to switch your role, you must take 1 horror. I think that this is actually the scarier version of the Lola Hayes, of the weakness here, and I think that's something that you need to be aware of. Luckily, Samuel Blake can die to soak or other effects, which we are going to take advantage of in our deck building here. Lastly, your deck must contain at least 6 cards from each class. This is different than regular Lola, which required 7 cards from 3 different classes. This one, you're going to need at least 6 cards from each class, but luckily you could just play the staples, which we're about to get into. So, As I said, this was my first attempt at a Parallel Lola Hayes deck, so I can't promise it's going to be good. We're going to see how it is in action later in this week, so this is all kind of like in theory as we see how things happen. I'm going to start about with my 0 to 4 choices, as well as my neutral cards here, because again, this is going to be a two-slide deck, so we're going to kind of talk about this in chunks. And the first one, I chose Guardian and Survivor as my 0 to 4 choices, and then they're also including my 2 neutral cards here. When I was looking at Parallel Lola Hayes, I was trying to figure out what am I going to do. And I want to actually bring her to a run with Travis and Bryn through either the Path to Carcosa or Dark Matter, which is going to be starting up on the channel in the near future. So I said, hey, I want to bring Lola. I want to bring Parallel Lola in specific before you guys yell at me. And I want to try in the flex role. So that was kind of where my focus lied for this, and kind of how I looked at this deck. So you can already see from this kind of kit here is that this is a very flexible kit. We have Blessed Blade in one hand, optimally, and Lantern in another. The thing that's kind of huge is what we're looking at again, going back to Parallel Lola's ability. We can only play or commit neutral cards from our current role, but even if we're in our Survivor role, we can use our Blessed Blade to fight. If we are in our Guardian role, we can use our Lantern to investigate. And I think these are all important pieces to allow us to be consistent and kind of just like get the job like done. So Blessed Blade, Lantern. One hand fighting, we're going to do kind of blessings with this as well with Ancient Covenant. Lola still has all 3s for her stats, so something to be aware of. And we have B-Cop to help us make our fighting more consistent. Again, old Lola, you get the +1 fist, but new Lola, Parallel Lola, can also get the Lightning Bolt ability on the B-Cop, making her damage even more consistent. Blood Eclipse here is a one-of as a method, as I said, to kill Samuel Blake. Even if we miss the attack, if it allows us with Blood Eclipse to kill Samuel Blake and make our ability to change roles even easier, I think that this is going to work really well. Beyond 29 XP, I'd probably look at an additional copy of Blood Eclipse, but the problem is the real hard struggle here with Parallel Lola is staying in tune with your deck building restriction, because again, you need at least 6 copies of all classes in your deck. Baseline, this is 2 copies of 3 different cards, so they can look at that as kind of like the foundation, which means that if you need 6 of the 10 of the 5 classes, that means 30 cards in your deck are already kind of like you have to upgrade within that thing. And of those, baseline, 12 of them, you can do more obviously because you have the 10 extra cards, are only up to 0 to 1. So it's going to mean you're going to need a deck building plan for Lola. And I don't really know what the deck building plan is for this because this is a standalone. So again, that's kind of like what we're looking at here. But Blood Eclipse, if I would do 2 of these, I would look at upgrading to a second one if I went beyond the 29 XP, but I likely would have to cut one of my Survivor cards to do so because my Seeker, Rogue, and Mystics are already going to be down very close to the 6 card minimum that we have to run. Stand Together and Take Heart are both here as pieces of economy. Sparrow Mask allows us to be a little bit more defensive. This deck is kind of like light on the ability to soak and heal, so that's why I went Sparrow Mask, and ultimately why I went for Call for Backup. Sparrow Mask, while it doesn't heal, it means I'm less likely to take damage during the Mythos phase. Going to 5 for a test is pretty comfortable. Couple that with the Ancient Covenant, like maybe we get Favor of the Moon in the long term in this deck. But again, everything you take out, you have to ensure you're following the restrictions, which kind of fits with the old Lola, which is her deck building is not so much her ability, but her ability is not so much the thing on the front of their card, it's the thing on the back of her card. Look What I Found can help us get clues. Keep Faith is a Bless Enabler. Contemplative and Longshot, again, we're a flex. We can use both those things. We're primarily going to live in Survivor for this. And because you have to switch each turn, we're going to probably switch out of Survivor and then switch back into Survivor at the next opportunity that we have. So we want to try to make these Contemplatives and Longshots work as much as we can. Call for Backup, as I said, was kind of brought in here from the healing side of things, but was also, I think, very fun is going into Synergy, as we can kind of see on the second half of this deck here. These are our remaining classes, and you can see that we have 6 of each of them, except for Mystic, which we have 8 of, which can be something you could focus on to upgrade your deck. But again, you got to be aware of it. These can only go to level 0 to 1. Only your chosen classes can go higher than 1 experience. Shrewd Analysis is our cheeky way of making call for backup. Always at least get a clue, which I think is like my preferred call for backup that we can get there. But beyond that, it's kind of just good stuff. Thorough Inquiry on the Seeker one, Bank Job, the 2 double things to either draw a bunch of cards for the team or get a bunch of resources, means that as my job is a flex, if there's no monsters to solve, I can solve other problems like giving myself or my teammates cards. Another really good thing I like about Stand Together here in this deck, if you look at that card there. Also, I didn't say it, but the deck list is down in the video description as well if you wanted to follow along with that. Deep Knowledge can also get our team cards. Eureka can get ourselves or our teammate cards. Our Seeker side is very supportive, apart from Shrewd Analysis, which is kind of just the cheeky little synergy thing that we're going for here. On our Rogue side, we have the Bank Job, as mentioned, Faustian Bargain. Again, like Deep Knowledge, we're here to help our teammates out. The Curse tokens might be a problem to us, but I do feel like this deck is going to be taking less tests overall compared to your main fighter and your main Clover. Lucky Cigarette Case is here to give us a little bit more juice. And Close the Circle on our Mystic sides here is another kind of payoff that we have to get more actions. So we can use those to just like take basic draw actions, move actions, and in a perfect world we can get 5 charges on this. Lola has that little bit of a struggle where she doesn't have an Investigator class that she can take advantage of when she plays it to immediately get an extra charge. But what she does make up for the fact is that she can run all 5 classes without having to do any sort of weird tricks to get there. It just happens. I went with 2 copies of Read the Signs here because the Look What I Founds are kind of here to help supplement the clue side. Blessed Blade 4 is much better than Lantern when it comes to getting, like, dealing damage versus getting clues. So my thought process was, if my weapon was really good, I want my ways to get clues to be very bursty with how they go. And then also, like, the Read the Signs and the Look What I Found means that I can bounce between Mystic and Survivor really well. But as you can see, it kind of has a pretty basic gameplay sort of structure here, where the ability to bounce between Survivor, where I want to be playing cards to advance my board state, or defeat enemies during off turns, that I can bounce between Seeker, Rogue, and Mystic to kind of also do other supportive jobs or get clues in other ways, or in the case of Voice of Ra, get some additional sort of perks here, some more resources for myself. Promise of Power here is a little bit of a sticky one to have, but I feel like if there's a Mythos phase that ended and I did not draw an enemy, or if there's no clues I need to really grind towards, or I have like my Lantern in play or my Blessed Blade already in play, I can switch into Mystic to go Promise of Power and either use it to advance a test that I need to for the objective, or alternatively protect myself or a teammate in the next Mythos phase. But I think that this like fluctuating roll dance is going to be a lot more exciting in Parallel Lola, and I think that ultimately, in my opinion, it's a more successful design for Parallel Lola. But that's just one guy's opinion. You might notice we have a lot of economy in this deck, more than you would normally run, but a big thing to remember is that this Lola Hayes deck has 10 more cards, so we kind of need to just add more economy to ensure that we hit economy. And also, because we can play every class, we can kind of just play the best of each economy, so something to keep in mind. We really want to find our Blessed Blade. We really want to find a Lantern. Everything else we kind of are supplementing to help us get there and just make us kind of just more consistent at getting to this goal, which, if you know anything about a playing board games deck that I build, I love my consistency to just make sure I get to do what I came to do. So, that is my first Parallel Lola Hayes deck. I hope you enjoyed this very brief deck tech where I kind of just showed off the theory for this here to show off one of the many, many things that you can do. I think that this Lola is an incredible, incredible design. I actually think she's very powerful. In theory, I haven't played her, but I think that it's a very, very successful parallel design where it's kind of like a redesign in a way. And there was, ages ago, I was part of a thing called the Many Faces of Charlie Kane, where 10 different content creators made 10 different Charlie Kane combinations. I would love to do that again with Parallel Lola Hayes, because I think that's just like a really cool thing, and I think she's incredibly open with how you can take her. And again, I think she's just very successful in her design. On Saturday, as I said, you can find the gameplay for this going live. But in the meantime, thank you so much for watching, everybody. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope you enjoyed this in theory, deck tech. If you want to support the channel, you can do so by liking, commenting, subscribing, or if you want to go above and beyond, you can join all these awesome Patreons here for the low price of $3 US a month. If you want to sacrifice one coffee so I can buy a coffee, it would mean the world to me. Thanks for watching, everybody. Have a good one, and as always, a GG's.